2025 NFL draft prospect Tetairoa McMillan is not from a bad football school, despite going 4-8 with Arizona and finishing 13th in the Big 12 in 2024. In fact, we often forget how he was the best player on a 10-3 Arizona team in 2023, the best Wildcat squad since 1998. If McMillan can swiftly put a collegiate team back on the map, he might be able to do the same for a NFL team. Is McMillan the best wide receiver in the 2025 NFL draft? Well, let's find out. Before I evaluate McMillan's skill set, let me go over some background for y'all. McMillan is Hawaii born and raised, but at the age of 12, he moved to California, likely to take advantage of his athletic abilities. He played his high school ball at Servite High School in Anaheim, California, where he became a 2022 composite 4-star recruit just outside of the top 50. Initially, McMillan committed to play for the Oregon Ducks, but after a few high school teammates decided to continue their athletic career at Arizona, McMillan flipped his commitment to the Wildcats. McMillan immediately received playing time as a freshman, catching 39 passes for 702 yards and led the team with 8 receiving touchdowns. After leading receiver Dorian Singer transferred away to USC, McMillan became the #1 outside receiver target in that offense as a sophomore, where he caught 90 passes for over 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns, leading the offense alongside high school teammate Noah Fifita to a 10-3 record. Going into 2024, Arizona was preseason ranked number 21, and McMillan had the 3rd best odds to win the Biletnikoff Award. Unfortunately, the season did not go as planned, but McMillan led the receiving room in every major stat with 84 receptions, 1,319 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. Travis Hunter won the Biletnikoff Award, but McMillan finished 2nd in the fan vote. Now it's time for McMillan to ball out at the next level. Is he worth a top 10 pick, maybe even top 5? Let's talk about him. If this is your first CKJ detailed scouting report, first off, welcome to the channel, but here are the rankings I will put sections of McMillan's game into. The most important part of being a wide receiver involves their route running. And the thing is, I was hoping for more out of McMillan in terms of route running. Above average is still a positive thing, but there's really one thing that holds this grade back. But I'll get into that later. Let me begin with the routes themselves, as this is where I was impressed. First off, his short routes, or really all basic routes behind 10 yards as I like to evaluate them, are whatever in terms of how unique they are, but they open up opportunities for him as an open field receiver. What I was most satisfied about with his short route running was how he can use his very good agility to run these routes through heavy traffic. For example, on basic slant routes, he's able to run through linebackers congesting the middle of the field and lose the DB using those linebackers. Pretty good stuff. His medium routes include some of the best routes in his game. Inside dig routes, comeback routes outside the numbers, and some extra combo routes off the curl really make up his medium game. He got a ton of volume around 15 to 25 yards in both 2023 and 2024, and it makes sense when you see how good of a medium route runner this guy is. Now, where McMillan struggles is going deep. His vertical capabilities are held back by his small route tree going deep and his below average deep speed. I really wanted to see more out of McMillan in the deep game, but I can't hold it too much against him. This section of his game isn't awful, and this could be made up by his catch point abilities, which I'll discuss later. McMillan's ADOT was 33rd out of all wide receivers with at least 75 targets last year, so that's pretty dang good. But I mentioned McMillan's route tree being small. You know how I said McMillan has one thing holding this section back? Well, you've made it. From what I watched, his route tree is very basic. You can look up others' opinions on his route tree, and this might just be the trait that scouts are divided on for McMillan. One thing that concerns me is that McMillan's go-to route in the short game is the whip route, which is really only great in plays under 3 yards. Not good. Too many verticals outside the numbers, And when he goes vertical inside the numbers, it's only when he has to playmake and get away from the medium route he just ran. McMillan's off-script playmaking is one of the best traits he has, and while that doesn't really go into my final grade, it does tie into one thing that does. McMillan's spatial awareness is very good. He does a fantastic job sniffing out the soft spots in zone coverage, and especially can do this off script. This ties into his elite combo routes, which are mainly seen in the medium game, but he never loses sight of the play at hand. When Fifita was flushed out of the pocket, which happened a lot in 2024, he ran with him and found a way to give him an open receiver. Two more traits to discuss here. When it comes to McMillan's release package, it's below average. But when it comes to his explosiveness off the line, it's very good. At the same time, teams didn't press him much in 2024, so his release is overall just hard to evaluate. And finally, McMillan's play strength and physicality on his routes did not satisfy me. He will use good physicality to create separation, but that will often turn into just pushing off, and he could be a target for offensive pass interference if this continues. On top of that, he will sometimes fall on his routes, not only because he got tripped up, but because he got out-muscled. So overall, McMillan's route running lands as just above average, which is worse than I thought after I watched his 2023 film over the summer. But only is the key word there. If this is only what it's at, the rest of his game is phenomenal. Next up is the athleticism. It's hard to be a first-round receiver if you don't have the athleticism. There are some rare cases, including Keon Coleman last season, but these guys have an elite section somewhere else. Coleman's elite section was his catch point abilities. But athleticism is not something McMillan lacks. Especially for his size, he is a very athletic receiver who would have a nearly perfect grade if I evaluated athleticism when comparing it to size. But this is just a general athletic trait, but despite that, he's still up there. This begins with agility, and if you could see with some of these routes, his agility is fantastic. The combo routes is where you see this best, or his capabilities after the catch. There are many plays that I watched where he caught the ball with around 3 to 5 yards of separation from the DB. He immediately turned sideways and made his cut, which allowed the DB to overshoot the tackle. If he's in man coverage at this point, he's getting an extra 10 to 15 yards after the catch. This season, McMillan was 30th in FBS for yards after the catch, and in 2023, he ranked 19th. Now, yes, he was 3rd and 4th in receiving yards those seasons respectively, but he's also not a massive threat behind the line of scrimmage like your Tej Johnson or your Luther Burden. He had 7 targets behind the line of scrimmage in 2024. Tej Johnson with Oregon had 37. Nonetheless, McMillan is still a very solid open field threat, especially for his size. That might not be notable when you see he's 13th in yards per route run and 33rd in ADOT, but yes, it's absolutely there when you watch the tape. Moving away from agility into two traits I've already mentioned. Deep speed is not fantastic in terms of a NFL wide receiver prospect, but in terms of his size, it is very solid. He should run under a 4.5, likely around the 4.45 range, but yeah, that's not going to intimidate opposing DBs. And for explosiveness, this honestly varies around his skill set. This is fantastic in his release package, but it's not as a route runner. This is because you aren't seeing him run routes that require great explosiveness. Short routes, it's there. Medium routes, he's using agility to break inside and not break towards a post or a corner. Deep routes, deep speed. That's why I ranked his explosiveness as just average in this section. Moving on to McMillan's catch point capabilities, which just like route running, I thought this was going to be higher after watching his 2023 tape. But unlike route running, I thought this section would be closer to the perfect side, and it still ends up good. Yeah, his 2024 season was a setback for the catch point, but the upside is absolutely still there, and this could be perfect in the NFL. This is primarily because of his elite catch radius. I mean, the dude is 6'5" with long arms and decent hands. All he needs is average hands, and this guy immediately becomes a fade threat. a goal line threat, a F it, he's down there somewhere threat. It's pretty fun to watch. We see this a lot on tape where he can use that catch radius to haul in some inaccurate passes. He's going to be a quarterback's best friend at the next level, I just have a feeling. But the other two traits involved in catch point took steps backward in 2024. First off is his hands. At one point during the season, McMillan had a career drop rate of 3.7%. Now it's up to 5.8%. This is because he dropped 8 passes in 2024, and all of them came after week 5. Post week 5, he dropped no targets in only 3 of his 9 games played, and he dropped multiple passes against BYU in week 7 and Arizona State in week 14. His hands are still great at times, but that consistency is why his grade fell from an A to a B+ in this section. Inconsistency is also seen in his catch in traffic abilities, but it's still very solid. At times, he's able to hold on to passes through contact, make some good contested catches, and overall excel at hauling passes in through traffic. Take this as a positive or a negative, or both, but he was 3rd in contested catches out of all FBS receivers in 2024. On the other hand, McMillan will sometimes fail to keep a ball through contact, and it will get jarred out by the DB's contact. This isn't as common as the positive end of this section though, so he overall wins in this category. McMillan has great contested catch upside for the next level. All he needs is to improve on his ball concentration and boom, he's got it. You guessed it. This section will be short like always, but I don't want y'all to undermine the vitals. I guess if you're new, you wouldn't know that, but you know what, let's just get into it. A+ right out the gate for McMillan's measurables. I mean, the guy is 6'5", 212 pounds. If nobody retires, he will be the 9th active NFL wide receiver at that height, and would be the 6th heaviest of those 9. That's an easy A+. Medicals shouldn't be a concern. They were going into the season as he had leg surgery after injuring himself during a practice, but he ended up playing the entire 2024 season, so he should be fine. For McMillan's height, his alignment versatility is pretty impressive, as he played a career 22.9% of his snaps in the slot and 76.6% out wide. And production is just under an A+, but an A is still great. I'm not too impressed with the touchdown production given his volume, but going for well over 3,000 yards and 3 seasons is fantastic. Alright, now I've evaluated McMillan's game as a prospect, so let's get into this final grade. First off, his positives are, and here are the negatives. McMillan is the consensus #1 wide receiver prospect in the 2025 NFL Draft. That's if you count Travis Hunter as a corner. While I haven't gone through this position in full yet, I might agree with them. The question is, where should McMillan get drafted? Could be a top 5 pick. He could be a top 10 pick. He's probably a top 10 pick. How do you evaluate his quarterback play and how he's played for the same quarterback for so many years? How do you evaluate Arizona's drop in record? Well, I still evaluate it as an A grade, and while it is close, that still translates to a first round grade. Wait, are you not subscribed yet? Well, do it now. I release content like this all the time and would really appreciate your support. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and I will see you all next time.